How's going, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm back with another banger for you all. Huge shout out to Sinbad III for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Worthless. That one word alone has so much impact on the fragile mind of a child if thrown around too much, and in the case of Naruto, formerly Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki, it was a word that had been used by two influential people of his former village to describe him. As he floated half-dead down the river he had been thrown into, he silently cried as he remembered what had happened to put him in this position in the first place. Naruto's life had started off well enough with a family that loved him and a promising future ahead of him. He had a father by the name of Minato Namikaze, who was one of the world's most infamous shinobi who single-handedly stopped war. His mother was Kushina Uzumaki, who was just as infamous as her husband but without the reputation of such butchery under her belt. He had a twin brother by the name of Menma who looked exactly like him, but with the key difference that Naruto had what appeared to be whisker marks on his face. For the first 4 years of their lives they were the perfect family, but all that came to an end when Kushina became pregnant with her third child, who would have been a daughter, but due to complications with the birth she died along with the child. Naruto as well as brother had wept hard when they lost their mother, but even more so when their younger sister died before she even took a single breath of life. Naruto had overheard his father complaining about a woman named Tsunade not being there to save her life when needed because of her bad habits of drinking and gambling, so Naruto grew to hate a woman he never met in his life and blamed her for his mother's death. It was after her death that the Kyuubi appeared out of the blue and attacked the village. The village was hit hard, but in the end the beast was split into two separate entities and resealed into Naruto and his brother. They were trained to use that power over the course of the next 3 years, but as they trained Naruto noticed that his father seemed to resent him for some reason that his young mind couldn't understand. He trained Menma over him most of the time, and his brother's mood towards him became more cold and distant. One day Minato called Naruto and Menma into their family training room to talk, and when they arrived he ordered them to fight each other with everything they had. The fight was more or less one-sided since Menma was trained better than Naruto himself was and was far more ruthless in his attacks. Naruto was too caring and didn't want to hurt his brother at all and stayed mostly on the defensive. In the end though, Naruto was beaten, and as he made to get up a seal activated that brought him back to his knees. He felt his chakra as well as the Kyuubi's drain from his body, and felt like he was going to die since the more that was drained from him the darker his vision became. He saw his brother grow stronger since his stolen power was being transferred to him. Yet before he fully passed out from the process, Minato grabbed him by the head and called him worthless, for in Minato's eyes he was too weak to carry on the name of Namikaze. Naruto passed out with tears in his eyes. When he came to, he noticed he was in a small cell chained to the wall. After a bit of time a man came in who introduced himself as Danzo. He told Naruto that his father had disowned him since he was too weak and had given him to become a member of his root forces so that he would have at least some use in the future. Naruto grew angry as he heard this and spit blood into Danzo's face. He became angry when Naruto did that, and ordered his men to begin the process of breaking his will down. For weeks, Naruto was beaten senseless in an effort to destroy his self-worth, to make him submit to his new master, but no matter how much pain he was in he would not break. Different tactics were used, but nothing worked in the end. Over time his body began to weaken and bloody, but even so his will never broke since he was like his mother in that regard, strong-willed. Once more Naruto was grabbed by the head and called worthless by Danzo before he ordered one of his men to throw Naruto's half-dead body into the river to drown and let the elements take care of him since in his mind he wasn't even good enough for a proper funeral. The root Nin did as ordered and threw Naruto into the river to die, and as Naruto floated down the river, his will had finally shattered. But the universe had another purpose for him. Naruto was sucked into a vortex of some sort that appeared randomly, and disappeared just as quickly as it had appeared in the first place. The vortex threw him through time and space into an underground lab of sorts. There he was found by a man who he would come to know as Dr. Gero. The man had used various unstable power sources to try and power his lab and future creations, since while he could have used a more stable form of power, it wouldn't give him enough for his future plans. He had finally made a stable form of it, and to his surprise a child was thrown through it unconscious at his feet. At first Jero saw him and was going to simply snap his neck and be done with it, but something in the back of his mind told him to stop. He thought that maybe this was a perfect chance at a test subject for his android plan in the future. So for weeks he enhanced Naruto with cybernetic implants, as well as a prototype program that he spent years developing. It was what he called the adaptive protocol, which was made for helping turn the tides of battle in his favor. What it allowed the user to do was to analyze whatever attack was and adapt accordingly so that they could counter it, and strengthen themselves so as to eliminate any weakness. Once he was fitted with all the parts, he was placed into a pod where he was put through various tests against virtual fighters throughout the ages. Naruto was a quick learner, and even though he initially lost against them, he grew from every defeat and quickly overpowered them one by one. It was months, nearly a year later, that he was then pit against the virtual program of one Son Goku, who was the man that Jero built not only him but many other androids to fight. And it was there that Naruto faced his ultimate challenge. No matter what he threw at him, nothing worked, and he was unable to kill him. Even when he was paired with androids 13, 14, and 15, their combined might was unable to beat him. The adaptive protocol was only good when there was a body left intact to learn from, and Goku would always destroy him in a way that he couldn't continue on with the fight. Dr. Jero grew furious as the tests failed to produce the results he wanted, and because of this he moved on to build stronger and better androids, while leaving the 4 of them in the sub-basement. While he did, the test still went on for Naruto, who continued to fight because he remembered being called worthless by his father, and it infuriated him to the point he swore that he would become stronger than him and his backstabbing brother so that the world would know he wasn't worthless like he claimed. For 3 years Naruto continued on in his training, and finally one day he finally beat it. But in the end he knew it wasn't good enough and he continued on with it so that he could do it consecutively. It took 3 months more, and as his testing was complete, the monitor beside him changed to show that it was done. But Dr. Jero had all but forgotten them here at this point, and went to fight the Saiyans that he was so obsessed about. It was not too long before a short bald man by the name of Krillin and a young purple-haired man named Trunks came into the sub-basement, and fired their energy into the core that powered the lab. As it exploded, the same vortex that brought him here took not only him, but the other androids that he had trained with in the past back into his world. As their pods crashed into the ground, Naruto opened his eyes for the first time in years, and using strength alone he punched the pod's cover right off. He slowly got out of the pod and looked at his hands as he clenched his hands into fists. He felt the Ki energy flow through his body, and as he stood there he roared out in rage, for while he had been called worthless to his face, he would prove all who had thought that wrong. Naruto looked around and surveyed his surroundings to see where he had ended up now. The last time he had just teleported elsewhere he had been captured and experimented on by a crazy-ass old man who had a massive boner for Saiyan murder. And to be honest, he could only hope and pray to whatever gods that exist in this realm, or the other he was imprisoned in for years, that he died in a gruesome way, and hopefully painfully by his own creations if karma was a real thing. But that was a thought for later, since he was no longer in Dr. Jero's hidden cave laboratory, and was finally free to walk around for the first time in years. He took a deep breath of fresh air and smiled, since he now tasted freedom, and it was marvelous to experience this feeling once more after so long. He began to laugh in joy as he floated in the air for a bit, since he was genuinely happy that he was able to do that outside of a simulation. He powered up his hands with Ki energy as a test to see what else he was able to do outside of the simulation. And as he felt the power he had trained in for years in a simulation, he flew high up into the air. He looked far off into the distance, and to his surprise as well as glee he saw the Hokage monument with all 4 of the carved heads upon it, so that meant that he was back in his own world somehow. He would question how the hell that was even possible, but in all honesty he didn't really care and simply counted his lucky stars that he was back here and gifted the opportunity to get revenge against his former family. Now, while the first thing that came to his mind was to fly over there and simply blast them all to hell and let whatever passed for God in this realm sort it out, but he thought about it and decided against it. That was basically what Dr. Gero as well as Danzo would have wanted, with him being nothing more than a mass-murdering weapon of destruction, and he would be damned if he became what they wanted him to become. So he decided against it, and went with the better idea of settling down somewhere, and slowly tearing the village apart piece by piece. Why hunt them when instead they would hunt him when his name became infamous? Naruto Uzumaki Nami. He had to stop that thought since he remembered that he had been disowned by his family, so he was simply Naruto now. This upset him a bit, but then again it presented him a perfect opportunity to one day start his own clan, one able to surpass the Namikes, who were one if not the most infamous of them in all the elemental countries. He thought about a last name for a bit as he floated there, and it took a bit to decide. He would have gone with Androido since in a way he was an android, but that name didn't click in his head since it was way too obvious to anyone who he might meet. He thought of Senshi since it meant warrior, and that was exactly what he was trained to become his entire life. But even then it didn't sit well with him. Hell, he even thought about Kira since he was nothing more than a cold-blooded killer to the core. But then again, most people in this realm were, since being a shinobi was a fairly common profession here. So that wasn't too unique of a last name for him to use, and he decided against it. In the end he smiled though, since he thought of the perfect last name to begin his clan. He would become Naruto Zero. The name clicked for him since it had a double meaning to him. 3 times in his life he had been deemed worthless, basically a big fat zero of life, as well as being dubbed Android Zero as well. So the name was perfect to him since he wanted the world to understand that even those deemed worthless could become a force to be reckoned with if given enough time. Or in his case, time as well as an unnatural anomaly that put him in the fairly messed up and insane hands of the aging Dr. Gero. But that was beside the point. Naruto then simply dropped down to go and collect his pod, since there was no good reason to leave it where others could find it, and try to activate it somehow, and use it for training like he had for the past several years. It was then that he saw the other 3 pods that were there as well. He looked through the glass and saw that it was the others that he had trained with over the years, and to be honest he was genuinely surprised to see them here as well since this was not their realm to begin with. But then again he was a stranger to theirs, so he stopped questioning it, and simply opened their pods to let them out. It took a few minutes, but in the end they opened their eyes and climbed out of their pods and did exactly as he had done, and looked around to see where the hell they were. "Can one of you kindly explain where in the Sam hell we are?" asked 13, who looked around in confusion, since the last thing he remembered was being sealed away in a pod in a lab that was hidden in a cave. Now here they were in a forest of some sort, which was the exact opposite of where they had been. Android 13 was a muscular man with greenish-blue eyes and long white hair. He wore a yellow-brown vest adorning the Red Ribbon Army logo on his left side, as well as tiny gray suspenders worn underneath his vest, dark green trousers, dark gray boots with black tips, brown gloves, as well as a gray and yellow baseball cap with the Red Ribbon Army logo on its front. "We are in my old world," said Naruto as he got their attention. They looked in his direction and saw him there. They remembered him from the simulation program that he was in since they had been forced to work together to try and kill the simulation of Son Goku, but had failed countless times to do so until Dr. Gero just gave up on them and sealed them away to work on other projects to try and kill the man he had a vendetta against. "Right," said 15 as he pulled out a flask and unscrewed the cap on it. He took a quick swig out of it before he continued with what he was saying. "And I am a fairy tale princess that gets to marry a prince and live happily ever after." Android 15 was a very short and small man. To some extent, he embodied a stereotype of an African American due to his large pink lips and dark skin tone. 15 donned a large green hat with a red ball on top, what some would consider the rendition of a pimp's hat if they were to look at it in the former realm they were in, since that sort of thing didn't exist in this one. He had a black and white tuxedo shirt with a dark yellow and blue overcoat. He also wore a red bow tie sporting the Red Ribbon logo on it. He wore baggy light blue pants and black boots. Underneath his hat, he also has a white glass dome cranium, which was a major giveaway that he was not human. In addition to that showing just how inhuman he was, without his sunglasses his eyes were also completely mechanical. And if you actually think that, then you need to stop drinking, said Naruto with a smirk. He wore an unzipped blue hoodie, a white t-shirt/sweater, black shorts with white stripes, and a pair of gray sneakers. Because it's fairly obvious that you have a drinking problem. It's only a problem when I run out, and thus you have only further proved my point, sighed Naruto with a sweat drop. It was at this point that 14 tried to speak, but as he tried to speak all that came out was an ear-splitting noise that was like nails against the chalkboard. Naruto as well as the other two held their hands over their ears since it was fairly painful to listen to. For the love of all that is holy, shut your goddamn mouth, 14, barked out 13 as he held his ears. 14 shut his mouth as he realized what was happening. Android 14 was a large, heavily built, muscular man. He donned a brown brassard and belt combination, large brown gloves, a long green manskirt, and yellow and black boots. His skin tone was a shade of silver, and unlike all other androids created by Jero or his computer, he had brown eyes instead of blue. Seems like Jero never fixed you speech programming, said Naruto as he rubbed the inside of his ear with a finger to stop the ringing. We should fix that as soon as possible. And what makes you think that we will listen to you, boy? Asked 13 with a bit of a glare. Couple of things, said Naruto with a glare back at 13 that was just as intense as the one he was receiving. But the first is that I want to know where this attitude with a mix of confidence came from, since I have proven time and time again in the simulation that I can kick not only your ass but those two as well quite easily. And second, I swear that if you call me boy again I will do something you really aren't going to like. Well, that was all in the simulation, said 13 with a smirk, and this here is the real world, so you aren't a threat to me, boy. Before 13 could say anything else, Naruto quickly pointed his finger towards him and launched a small blast of Ki at him. Doing this blasted the trucker hat right off of his head and blew it up. No! My trucker hat! That was a warning shot, said Naruto as he pointed lower this time by a few inches. The next one will be towards your head, and just so you know, I don't miss. The three others all quickly lifted their hands towards him and charged Ki in them to blast him. Now you done fucked up, said 15 before he took another swig from his flask. You are outnumbered here, short stack. Okay, said Naruto with a raised eyebrow, that's the kettle calling the pot black. Okay, racist, said 13. I meant about the fact that the shortest guy in this group just called me short. It had nothing to do about his race. And spoiler alert, but purple is not a race, asshole. You still only got 2 hands there, said 15 with a smirk, and there are 3 of us. Naruto just smiled as the adaptive protocol analyzed this and adapted. Ki energy traveled to his eyes and caused them to begin glowing with power. He looked at 15 as he held up his hands and pointed them towards the other 2. Oh hell nah, said 15, that's just cheating. Oh, I'm sorry, said Naruto sarcastically, weren't you built with the adaptive protocol chip installed? Wait, that's right, you weren't, since I got the only one because it was a prototype that Jero never worked on again after me. Oh yeah, rub it in, why don't you? If I truly wanted to rub it in, I would just beat your ass literally into the ground and lord it over you. But you see, I'm not going to do that, since I am going to be the bigger man both metaphorically as well as literally. Oh, you mother fool! Started 15 before he was cut off. Oh, laughed Naruto as he saw how pissed off 15 was getting. Did I hurt the midget's feeling? It was at this point that the 3 of them blasted their Ki at him. He easily dodged the attack, and faster than they could react he simply clotheslined 2 of them, while he double leg kicked 15 who was in the middle. The 3 of them were launched backwards, but they would live, at least as much as someone who was turned into a mechanical entity could be considered such a thing. Do you want to continue this pointless fight, or are you finally ready to listen to me? Asked Naruto as the 3 of them got up and brushed the dirt off of themselves. Okay, fine, said 13 as he looked at Naruto. He had to admit to himself that the boy was far stronger than the 3 of them, and there was no sense denying it. Well then, said Naruto as he sat down on a log that was there. It seemed like when they came to this dimension the way they did the energy output blasted the trees in the area. Now that we have all that pent-up anger out and done with, allow me to explain how my world works. You are still an asshole, mumbled 15 as he took yet another swig from his flask. Yes I am, said Naruto simply, But when you are treated like you are utterly worthless not once or twice, but 3 separate times, then you kind of become an asshole to cope with that bit of trauma. Before they could respond, Naruto went into detail about his world and how it worked. The various villages and their shinobi, the wars they had, the biju, the various clans, the works. He spent about an hour explaining things to them, and lucky for him they fully understood what he said to them without any sort of complications. And so there you have it, said Naruto as he stood up from his seat after he said what he wanted to say. So any questions? So wait, said 15. He put his hand under his chin and thought, then does that mean that you have family here to go back to? I had family, said Naruto simply with a frown. So what? They dead or something? They're dead to me. So what's the plan now, boss feller? Said 13, who was wondering what to do with his free time now that he had such a thing. Well, my idea is to settle down somewhere and become a mercenary for hire, said Naruto with a shrug of his shoulders. You make it sound so easy when you say it like that, kid, said 15. Well, think about this logically. We were made to kill one if not the strongest person in the world who had the power as a kid to wipe out an entire army by himself. That power grew in time and we were made, amplified, and modified to kill him and him alone. Since said person does not exist in this world or dimension, our main purpose in life is null and void. So I'm not too worried about fighting shinobi that while they may be strong, none of them have the type of power Son Goku possessed. Well, when you put it that way, said 13 in agreement, you make a valid point. So hell, I'll join you since in a way we are family. Brothers in arms, said 15 as he once again took a swig from his flask. But then he looked at it, and turned it upside down. He saw that it was now empty. Does this place have booze of any sort? Oh, of course, chuckled Naruto. Because otherwise you would lose your shit, and we would have to put you down. That's not funny. It wasn't meant to be. At least not to you it wasn't. Naruto then picked up his pod, with the others doing the same, and began to fly off in search of a new home to call their own. Konoha. It had been quite some time since Naruto had been left to die in the river by a member of Root, and while those who actually knew him thought he had died, life still went on as normal since the number was fairly small. Minato didn't care about it when he was told, since he didn't believe that Naruto was worth a damn. His clan had always done this sort of thing when twins were born, since there was always just meant to be the one heir to the Namake's name. He always suspected that Naruto was the weaker of the two, and when they came of age had them fight to determine who would stay and who would go. The fight was meant to be to the death, as was the custom, but he had decided that Naruto should be placed into Root instead to at least get 1 or 2 missions out of him before he died. But then he received word that his son was too stubborn to break, and had died from exhaustion with his body being dumped in the river. While he didn't like that last part, since his body should have been burned so that it couldn't be recovered by the likes of Orochimaru or the like, but it was as it was. Menma was the prodigal son he wanted, who excelled at whatever he put his mind to, just like his old man. And now he had only 1 year left before he graduated from the academy, and made a name for himself. And Minato couldn't be happier. Now if only he could convince Tsunade to come back again, it would be the perfect day. He stood up to leave the office since he had completed the paperwork he needed to complete for the day, and as he stood up he knocked over a picture he had on his desk. It was a picture of him and his son Menma with smiles on their faces when he was only 7, and Minato looked at the picture with pride. Yet out of nowhere the glass covering the picture cracked. This made the hair on the back of his head stiffen in surprise, as he got a bit of goosebumps from seeing this, since it was so sudden. He thought about it for a second before he simply shook his head, since he was not one for superstitious as many were. So he left the picture there to go and buy a new frame for it. If he was still there, he would have seen the frame shatter instead. The picture unfolded on the left side, which showed Naruto as he frowned, since that particular day was not one of joy for him. And if one were to be superstitious, they would see this as a sign of bad things to come. Wave Country. As all that was happening in the village of Konoha, Wave Country was dealing with a major problem of their own. For the past several months they had been under the rule of a tyrannical businessman by the name of Gato. The country of Wave was an island country that's entire economy was based around shipping goods via boats. The problem with that was that Gato had snuck his way in and gained control of all shipping yards in the country via buying them out, and assassinations against those who wouldn't sell their business to him. In a few months he had full control over the trade of their entire country, and thus unofficially ruled over it. Yet even though he controlled most of the country, there were still those who opposed his rule, and one of the main people who stood up to him was a man by the name of Kaiza. The man had become a hero to the people after saving Inari from drowning a while back, and afterwards he taught the boy everything he knew about life, stressing that he must protect the things that were precious to him, saying to always do so with these two arms. He eventually married Tsunami, Inari's mother, and became Inari's stepfather as well as role model in his life. When Gato began his take over the land of waves, Kaiza tried to stop him by trying to rally the people to kick him out. But Gato decided to use Kaiza to scare anyone who hoped to stand against him. To do this, he planned to have his bodyguards cut off Kaiza's arms in a public execution, while mocking his statement of protecting the things you love with both arms, thus scaring the people, who were watching the execution right now, all the while voicing out their disapproval. Gato smiled as he saw this, since this would be the turning point in the subjugation of the people. He signaled his henchmen to kill Kaiza. The man saw his stepson Inari in the crowd and called out for him to look away. The henchman raised up his sword to kill Kaiza, but he fell backwards when out of the blue a young boy slammed to the ground in front of them. The suddenness of this event caused the people to silence themselves, since this was completely unexpected. And even though they were surprised already, it only intensified when three others appeared next to him. And if that wasn't enough, for separate metallic objects fell from the sky as well. "Who the hell are you?" asked Gato as he got back to his feet. "Just visitors," said Naruto with a shrug of his shoulders. "We were passing through here and saw the gathering of so many people, so we decided to see what the hell it was all about." "So what exactly is this?" "This man has openly rebelled against my rules, so I am ordering his execution," growled Gato as he glared at the boy. "And if you don't leave my sight in the next 3 seconds, you will join him." "And just who exactly are you to sanction such a thing?" asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. "I rule this country, you idiot." "Well, good day, your majesty," said 13 with a smirk. "I tip my hat to you, but I lost it." He shouted that last bit as he glared at Naruto. Naruto wasn't even looking at him, and just felt the glare and smiled, since it pleased him to piss off what was essentially his older brother. "Okay," said Gato with a confused look, "you have lost me here." "What's your deal?" "See here," said 13 as he smiled a sinister grin that unsettled Gato and his men. "Our insane creator Dr. Gero deemed us, in his own words, defective, leaving us on the proverbial shelf until, well, he didn't quite specify a particular time, and so we waited to be set free for some time." "And who and why did he do such a thing?" asked Gato, who was far more confused than he was to begin with. "He could not quite tolerate my dulcet tones, my choice in vernacular, and my particular method of articulation. Also, you talk funny," said one of Gato's men. "Oh, we know," said Naruto with a grin. "Now don't you get started," growled 13. "I already destroyed your hat," said Naruto, still with a grin as well as closed eyes. "And I could do so much more if you continue on with that statement." 13 paled as he heard that, since he knew Naruto could back up his threats if push came to shove. "So, if we are all done with the introductions—" "Wait, you never gave up your name," said Gato. Naruto simply smiled as he held up his hand and channeled Ki into it as he pointed it at him. "True," said Naruto in a voice that seemed like a mixture of a robot and a demon, "so a mechanical demon, but then again I never planned to." He then blasted Gato into nothing in a flash of energy that killed not only him but the several henchmen he had behind him. The people who saw this, their eyes opened wider than they have ever done in their lives, since this was something that they would have never guessed would happen, not in a million years. "Now," started 13 as he got into a fighting stance along with the others, albeit Naruto, who was busy ripping the nails that had been pierced through Kaiza's hands and feet. He would need medical attention as soon as possible, but he would live in the end. "I believe we have some business to attend to. Idaho Estate, laying multiple corpses upon this here land." 14. 15. "You got it, boss man," said 15 as he took a step forward, but then the stage collapsed where he was standing and he sunk into the ground up to his neck with his head still visible. The 3 androids looked at him as it did and were gonna laugh about it, but he said something before they did. "You forget you saw this." He then blasted out of the stage and attacked the men who were obviously the late Gato's henchmen since they were armed while the citizens of the village were not. Naruto had convinced them to stop and aid these people not too long ago. At first they were against it since they really didn't care what happened to them, but Naruto told them it would be a perfect way to get the word out of their abilities. And thus their infamy would begin, and thus they would be sought out to be hired by various people. Mercenaries needed a list of clients to survive, and this was the perfect chance to gain some. Plus he added that Jero was not around to order them to slaughter people anymore like the madman he was, so they should use their power to at least defend the people since it was better than being the monsters that Jero wanted. So they agreed with his logic and thus did as they did to kill Gato and now his men. They lasted but a few minutes, with a few running away for their live. They didn't get far since the three of them launched Ki blast at them and blew them up. Well, that was a fun distraction, said Naruto as he helped Kaiza to his feet. As he did, several people rushed forward and helped by taking off of Naruto's shoulder and began to take him away to get the medical assistance he needed. They stopped though when he asked them to. Wait, said Kaiza as they turned him to face Naruto, who at the moment was picking up his pod to continue looking for a place to settle down with the others. Please, young man, why did you help us? Oh, it was nothing, said Naruto with a smile as his brothers came back and picked up their own pods as well. But if you'll excuse us, then we will continue on our way. Wait, please, at least tell us your names so that we can remember you by. Oh, that seems fair enough. I am Naruto Zero. This blonde man is 13, the midget is 15, and the silver man with the ponytail is 14. Said Kaiza in confusion, and he wasn't the only one confused. Their names are numbers? Oh yeah, said Naruto as he set his pod down for a second. We were all experimented on by a crazy doctor, with me being the prototype of the experiments he ran on them. I retained who I was and the memories of my past while theirs were erased, so they go by the experiment number they were since they have nothing else to go by. Oh, that is so sad, said Tsunami as she heard this. Yeah, it sucked, said Naruto with a bit of a sigh. But since we are done here, we will take our leave now. No, wait, said Kaiza, please stay. Our village does not have the proper means to defend itself against people like Gato if they were to come once more. And just who in the hell is Gato? Asked Naruto with a quizzical look on his face. He was the elderly man with a cane that you blasted to oblivion, said Kaiza. Which was awesome! Shouted little Inari, who was amazed that someone was able to do that, especially someone as young as Naruto. Inari, hush, said Tsunami as she hugged her son. No, it's quite alright, said Naruto with a bit of a goofy grin. Being able to blast your enemies to ash like that is pretty awesome when you think about it. So will you please stay? Said Naruto as he thought about it. How much does it pay? Come again? Asked Kaiza, since that was not the expected response. We are mercenaries that work when paid to do it, said Naruto simply. So if you pay us, we will protect you from anyone else who will try to take over. Well, about that, started Kaiza as he rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Our village is poor since Gato stole most of our money when he took over like he did, said an elderly man who appeared next to Kaiza. He was a gray-haired, bespectacled man with a large beard and dark eyes. He wore a sleeveless V-neck shirt with an obi, pants and a pair of sandals. He also carried a towel around his neck and wore a pointed hat on his head. This was the man known as Tazuna, Inari's grandfather and Tsunami's father. Oh, said Naruto in thought. While he could simply aid the people out of the kindness of his heart, he and his brothers were broke, so they really needed the money since you can't eat if you don't have money. Well, he couldn't anyway since he was unsure if the others even ate anything. He knew 15 drank, way too much to be honest, but never ate anything. Well, did the man I killed at least have what I can assume was a big-ass mansion of a home? How? Started Tazuna, before Naruto cut him off. Just a wild guess there really, since he was apparently a tyrant of a man, and they are known to want big houses and such. Well, yes, he did. But why do you want to know this? Because me and my brothers here were looking for a place to settle down, and if this place is anything like I think it is, it would be the perfect place to do just that. So if you agree to grant us the house, then we will consider it payment for protecting you for the foreseeable future. Well, we would like to do that. But you see, it's not that simple. Let me guess, said Naruto as he rolled his eyes. It's full of the money he stole from you and many other places, and you want that as well as any valuables he took from you back? Actually, yes to all of that. Well then go ahead and take it, said Naruto with a shrug, since we want the house, not the decorations or stuff inside of it. We will probably be remodeling it anyway to suit our needs. So do we have a deal? Asked Naruto as he held out his hand. Tazuna took it in his own and shook it to solidify the deal. Deal, he said as the people cheered in celebration behind him. They all made way towards the former tyrant's house to reclaim what was once theirs from the house. 1 year later, Konoha was badly damaged. Several sections of the village were in ruins. Its walls on one section were destroyed due to a large snake summons with 3 heads on one body, only to be crushed by an even larger summons in the form of a giant toad. As for Konoha itself, its shinobi were repelling the sound ninja, and those from Suna joining with them in this fight. Of course, the scheme used by Orochimaru had not gone according to plan, as it was later revealed by Jiraiya that the Kazekage had been killed by Orochimaru, and the Sannin was impersonating him to infiltrate the village for the Chunin exams. That made Suna realize quickly that they had been played by the snake Sannin and left in full retreat while they still could at that point, but not before killing as many sound ninja as they could when leaving. It was chaotic to say the least, as sound ninja were greatly overwhelmed soon after this happened, and Orochimaru's plan to fight the Yondaime Hokage alone hit a snag when the Kazekage's young son had unleashed the Biju inside of him during the fight he had with Menma. Orochimaru had thought that he had subdued the boy enough with the suppression seal he put on him in the Forest of Death during the second part of the exams, but the combined skills of Jiraiya as well as Minato had easily unlocked it and erased it. Gaara had been injured during his fight in the Chunin exams with the Namikes, which surprised his siblings given their little brother's reputation of sporting what they many considered to be the ultimate defense against any and all attacks. After fleeing long enough to recover, the boy unleashed his Biju from the forest onto Konoha and causing further destruction, even with word of Suna in full retreat. When the one-tailed raccoon dog started launching wind bullets left and right, one of them had skimmed right over the barrier Orochimaru's Sound 4 had created with enough force to destroy it. With the powerful barrier down, the Konoha Anbu encircling it had attacked, intent on saving their leader from death since he was injured by the sneak attack, and were able to force Orochimaru to retreat. In the end, Konoha was saved from being annihilated. The village proved it was able to stand against not one, but 2 shinobi villages, even if one of the villages was considered minor, and run by a traitorous Sannin, and so the village was repairing itself from the damage done to it. But they got through only half the repairs before they ran out of the essentials they needed to continue on with it. It was around that point that word of Wave Country completing the Great Zero Bridge came to them. So with that bit of knowledge, Minato sent out some messengers to arrange buying materials in bulk that they needed. And so they did that. But when they returned they did so with surprising news since the main village of Wave Country had become far more advanced than any other village was. The messengers had tried to buy some of their tech for themselves, but the people refused and simply agreed to sell them the materials they wanted in the first place. Minato didn't like that the people of Wave were hoarding such technology when it could help aid their village immensely if what he heard was true. Plus he had to get it for their village before another village tried to get it themselves. So he sent a few dozen root shinobi to get some of their tech for study, but they never returned alive. Minato sent a larger group this time, but once more it didn't return. He sent a third, far smaller infiltration team to see why this was the case, and this time there was something that came back since their heads were mailed to Minato with a note stating that no matter how many, or how few people he sent to steal what was not his they would perish. It was then that Minato begrudgingly stopped sending root there, and instead had Jiraiya try to infiltrate the village with his spy network. And now he had to wait while the shipment of materials they ordered arrived. What no one was aware of, not even the delivery crew, was that a few Kumo shinobi had infiltrated Konoha in all of the chaos, and waited for the perfect moment to claim a Hyuga clan member for themselves. They had tried years ago and failed, but when their Reikage had demanded compensation in the form of the clan head for his dead messenger, Minato simply challenged him to a duel and won. Thus a national crisis was averted and all was well. And eventually the opportunity they sought appeared before them in the form of Hinata Hyuga, who was walking towards the hospital to visit her cousin Niji since he had been injured during the invasion, and she cared for him. He protected her like an older brother for most of her life, and she had respect as well as family love towards the man. Yet halfway towards her destination she was drugged and kidnapped by the several Kumo shinobi in the village. And it would be quite some time before anyone even realized what had happened. Wave, Naruto and his brothers had been hard at work remodeling their new home for 7 months to fit their specific specifications. They had to quite literally fly around the world, which was mostly wasteland with ruins of various civilizations of long ago, to find materials they needed. They made their home into a fortified compound that was advanced beyond anything else that anyone had seen. There was a medical bay for Naruto as well as an engineering bay for the others since they were far more mechanical than anything. They used their pods as the blueprints for a training facility. Basically it was the same process they were used to with simulations, and while they had their own private one in the massive basement they had under their house, there was another one for the people in town who wanted to get stronger to protect themselves. There was another medical bay as well, but that was obvious since they weren't going to hoard that type of thing to themselves. Once their home was completed they helped to advance the town itself one house at a time. They built a hydro power plant which they taught the people how to work it since it was the perfect setting for one being by the water and all. They repaired various construction vehicles and tools to help the people gather more of various materials where they couldn't before. They introduced primitive firearms, think WW1 era, to help the people defend themselves from intruders since they couldn't be there always to protect the people. There was far more that they built to help better the lives of the people, but they were too numerous to list. All in all the people were happier than they had ever been, and they had the newly named Zero Clan to thank for it. Each of the 4 of them took on various missions in their spare time, which mostly consisted of killing bandits and rescuing hostages. But in time their names became known to the various people who spread it around in time. And it was at this time that the people of Wave had finally finished the bridge they were constructing so they didn't have to rely on boats to ship their goods all the time like they had in the past. As they expected, with Gato gone several other shady businessmen had tried to take over in his place. But Naruto and his brothers kept their word and protected the people from them, for which they were grateful for. Kaiser had made it a goal to get stronger to protect his family, to which he constantly hit the gym once it was built to get stronger, plus Tsunami liked the muscles he was building up. Inari had begun to idolize Naruto and followed him for weeks and asked to be taught by him. Naruto at first declined since he had no knowledge on how to even train in the art of Ki, but in the end he accepted and told Inari he would train him. So that was what Naruto did in his free time, train a kid who began to call him Big Brother, which brought a bit of joy to him to hear such a thing. 13 as well as 14 were construction workers mainly since they were fairly strong and able to fly, so getting things where they needed was fairly easy for them. To the surprise of no one, 15 opened a bar that he built with the help of Tazuna. The 2 of them hit it off fairly well since they loved to drink so damn much. But not only that, but they brewed their own alcohol such as beer and vodka that was well liked by the people. Naruto and his brothers knew that eventually people would try and take the technology that they had for themselves and warn the people to never sell it to anyone. The people listened to them, and just like the brothers thought, the village of Konoha sent 3 separate groups to do just that. They eliminated them hoping that the village would get the message to quit it, but it was only after the 3rd time that they sent a literal message back since they were being stubborn. And so far nothing else had happened. Today though, Naruto was flying through the air as happy as could be since he was alive and well, living a life that he made for himself, and was loved by the people who knew him. From time to time he flew to various ruins outside of the elemental countries to see what tech he could salvage and fix since he liked to tinker a bit. But as he flew over the border of Fire Country, he saw something that made him stop dead in the air. He saw a young woman with purple hair running for her life from a half-dozen grown men who were chasing her. She was cornered in the end and was drugged via a senbon dipped in a paralyzing agent of some sort. Naruto saw this and decided to help the girl. He slammed down to the ground between the now unconscious young woman and the men who drugged her. "What the fuck?" said one of them who had an eye patch, since he was shocked to see someone just drop from the sky like that. "I'm not gonna even ask why 6 grown men are chasing down a woman that is half their age, since I'm fairly sure I know the answer. But I will say that I won't let you do it." "Oh yeah," said the leader of the group with a smirk on his face, And what are you going to do about it, boy? Call me that again, growled Naruto, since he hated to be called boy, since in his mind it was an insult, since it meant that the speaker underestimated him. And see what happens. The group looked at each other before they began to laugh hard. To see a kid who appeared to just be entering his teen years appear before them and threaten them was nothing more than a joke to them, and a good one at that. That's a funny joke, said the leader as he wiped a tear away from his eye. And because you provided us with such a good laugh just now, we will let you live if you leave now. So take this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and leave while you still can be. The leader wasn't able to finish that sentence since Naruto had moved faster than they could react, and punched his fist through the man's chest. The leader was in shock that this kid had literally punched a hole in him. What was that? Asked Naruto with a sinister smirk on his face. I couldn't quite hear you over that hole I just made in your stomach. Wait, said the man in shock as the pain started to set in and his body shook from it. We can work something out here. Yeah? I've heard that bit already over a dozen times. Now let me put this in a way that you will easily understand. I'm about to blow my load all over your insides. What the? Started the leader. No homo, said Naruto before he blasted the man from the inside with Ki. The man died from the hole that was made from the blast, which also blasted him backwards towards his still shocked men. Now, said Naruto as he smiled and cracked his knuckles, who's next? The men quickly overcame their fear and rushed him with the thought process of they outnumbered him so they could take him. But that only hastened their deaths since Naruto simply killed them all with a shot through the heart with a beam each. When they fell over dead, Naruto walked over to the young woman who was still knocked out and checked for a pulse to make sure she was still alive at least. She was fine. But he decided to take her back home to put her in the medical bay so that he could extract whatever drug they used on her to put her in such a state. So he lifted her up and took her home. The trip took only about 10 minutes. But then again he could fly, so it was easy to get places when you can just bypass all obstacles in your way like that. Once back, he put on a medical face mask as was the standard, then he put her on the examination table and let the machines do their thing and analyze what was wrong. They took a quick blood sample and within 4 minutes developed a counter to the drug she had been injected with. Once it was injected into her, she began to stir as her body was able to move again. She opened her eyes and saw that she was in a brightly lit room with various strange tools surrounding her as a stranger looked over her. Her defensive mindset kicked in at this point, and she tried to attack Naruto with her clan's signature gentle fist style of fighting. Naruto simply dodged her attacks and held up his hands to signify he was not trying to hurt her. Whoa there, said Naruto in an attempt to calm her down. He had to admit he was impressed by her fighting spirit, but now was not the time for admiration such as that. There is no need for all the hostilities. Trying to take me against my will while I was drugged asleep, Kumo scum! She shouted as she prepared to attack him again. No, said Naruto as he waved his hands around in a comical fashion. I saved you from those men who were chasing you. I brought you here to receive medical treatment to extract the drug you were injected with. And why would you do that? Asked Hinata. Her mother had always warned her about strangers helping her in an attempt at getting her to drop her guard. Because it was the right thing to do, and I despise rapists with all the hatred I can muster. And why do you think they were rapists? Because when does it take 6 grown-ass men to chase 1 woman? Plus they drugged you, so I assumed that was the case, wasn't it? Yes and no, said Hinata as she eased up from being so hostile towards Naruto. She sensed no hostility from him, so she wasn't as tense anymore. They were shinobi from the village of Kumo. They kidnapped me to take me back to their village where I would then be graped to breed more of my bloodline for them. And what exactly is your bloodline that a village would risk war over? My family possesses the Byakugan. Ah, said Naruto as he remembered about the Hyuga clan and their eyes from his youth. It had slipped his mind though until this moment, since it wasn't really relevant. So what happens now? What happens now is I get you some supplies and you can head home if you wish, said Naruto as he headed towards the door, since you are not a prisoner here. I just wanted to make sure you were okay before you went on your way. Naruto then took off his mask and placed it in the locker by the door and turned around to look at Hinata once more. When Hinata saw his face though she was shocked since standing before her was Menma. Menma? Asked Hinata in a confused tone. She wondered how he had saved her and brought her someplace to heal her. But then certain facts began to set in. One being that he didn't know who she was, and the other being that while this guy looked like Menma, he had what appeared to be birthmarks that looked like whiskers on his face. So no, this wasn't Menma. Why do people keep assuming I am the son of the Yondaime Hokage? Asked Naruto with a sigh. I may look like him, but if I was him, then why do I live in Wave Country, while his son would live in Konoha, which is in Fire Country? Oh yeah, said Hinata as she blushed in embarrassment, and rubbed the back of her head. I guess you are right. Well then, said Naruto as he held the door for her, let's get you those supplies so you can be on your way. I'm fairly certain your parents are worried sick about you. Who are you? Asked Hinata as they walked towards a general store for supplies. My name is Naruto Zero, said Naruto with a smile, and might I ask what is yours? Hinata Hyuga. Well, Hinata, it's nice to formally meet you. As they walked to the few stores that they went to, Hinata saw that the people of the town respected him, and went out of their way to greet him as he returned said greetings. Hinata mentally slapped herself for ever thinking that this man was Menma, since the two were polar opposites. Menma was, for lack of a better description, a self-centered asshole to the very core. He believed that as a Namikaze that he was entitled to whatever he wanted, much like Sasuke was, since the Uchiha were all mostly like that, or at least most of them were, since she had seen Itachi himself, and he wasn't like the rest of the arrogant dicks that made up the clan. The main difference was that Menma had the skills to back up his boasts. But what was one to expect from the son of such an infamous shinobi who just so happened to have the strongest of the 9 Biju sealed within him? Hinata had disliked Menma for his arrogance as well as his unwanted advances towards her. The only one she hated worse than Menma though was her squadmate Kiba, since he wouldn't stop with his lecherous/perverted advances, and she just knew that if the chance presented itself that he would force himself upon her, and say hell with the consequences. Menma was an asshole to all he saw, and he got away with it too, since he was the son of the Yondaime, and Hinata didn't like that. But here was a man who looked exactly like him, but with the exact opposite sort of personality, and she had to admit he was fairly handsome. So was Menma in her mind, but his personality killed that crush quickly. So once Naruto the backpack he bought her filled with essential supplies such as food, water, and a med kit, he walked her to the bridge that connected to the mainland. Well, this is where we must part ways, said Naruto with a bit of a sad look on his face. I would escort you back personally, but I am late for a job as is. That's okay, said Hinata with a mild blush on her face as she poked her fingers together. I can make it back from here. You said we were in Wave, right? Why yes I did, said Naruto as he held out his hand to shake hers. Well, I hope you have a safe trip back home. Come back any time if you are in the area. I thank you for the offer, said Hinata as she shook his hand and turned around to begin the journey back home. But she stopped mid-step and turned back around and kissed Naruto on the cheek. Thanks for saving me, Naruto. Well, said Naruto with a blush on his face, since he was completely speechless on what to say right now. He had just been kissed on the cheek by a girl and he didn't know what to do. Hinata simply smiled as she sprinted off into the distance. Ah, said 15, who came out from behind some crates that had been there. Looks like our little man is growing up. I swear to whatever gods there are, 15, growled Naruto in embarrassment. I think it's sweet that our little brother heir has got himself a little girlfriend, said 13 as he dropped in to add his 2 cents on the subject. Oh, for the love of God! What next? 14 gonna appear? Said Naruto as just as he said that 14 appeared holding a crate. Seemed like he had been here the whole time working. This just caused Naruto to growl in embarrassment even more and begin to walk off from his brother's teasing. She is not my girlfriend. Your mouth says no, but your attitude says yes. This only caused Naruto to growl more. The city of Konoha was in a panic right now. It had been about a few hours since they had learned that Hinata Hyuga was kidnapped from their village, right under their noses as they were working hard to repair the damage done via the failed invasion. It shocked them to know that someone had managed to do so in the first place, and what made it even worse was that they did it when they were the most vulnerable. Hinata's father Hayashi as well as her mother Hitomi had learned about the abduction too late, when they searched for her for the daily family meal. They went to visit the hospital since she had been heading there to visit her cousin Niji, who had been hurt in the invasion. Yet when they talked to him, he told them that she had never arrived in the first place, and it was then that they knew that someone had kidnapped her. So they went to the Hokage and told him what happened, and when he heard about it he put the village on lockdown to search for her within it, as well as sent out multiple trackers to hunt down her captors in the surrounding area. For several hours this went on, with no leads whatsoever, since the Kumo shinobi that kidnapped her had come well prepared to evade any type of pursuit. And yet when all seemed hopeless, one of the tracking teams found her, as she was making her way back to the village with a bag of supplies on her back. The tracking team escorted her back to the village, where her parents were the first on the scene, with them both hugging her with tears in their eyes, since they had begun to fear that they had lost her forever. They took her to Minato to be debriefed on just what had happened exactly. There she told them that she had been snatched and drugged by Kumo shinobi while on her way to visit Niji in the hospital. They had gotten quite some distance from the village before the drugs wore off. She mentally thanked her mom for training her for years by slightly drugging drinks she gave her, with her knowledge of course, so that she had a fairly high resistance. She got away easily since they didn't think that she would come to, but she was then chased down by them. She was hit with a saban laced with the same drug that once again knocked her out. She explained that she had no idea what happened next since she was out of it. It was there that the story got interesting to the three people listening, since she explained that she had been saved by a young man who was her own age and brought in for medical attention back at his home in Wave Country. He injected her with a counter to the drug and got her the supplies that she needed to make it back home. Hitomi saw her daughter's face slightly blush as she recounted that bit of the story and smiled, since she saw the obvious signs of a crush, and she would ask about it later once this meeting was over. Yet what she said next made the color on Minato's face disappear. She told them that the man who saved her was named Naruto, and that he looked exactly like Menma, with the only real difference in appearance being the whisker-looking birthmarks on his face. Minato asked her to repeat the name, which she did, and as soon as she did he asked them to leave his office since he had to speak with someone immediately. They did as ordered and left Minato alone, or at least appeared to be. "You lied to me, Danzo," said Minato as he looked into the dark corner of the room, knowing that Danzo was there. "You told me that Naruto was dead, and that his body had been dealt with." "I believe that he was," said Danzo as he walked out of the shadows slowly, as was elderly, "since the brat was mostly dead when I had my men throw him into the river." "And yet he still lives," said Minato with a growl. This went against the traditions of his clan, since twins had to fight to the end so that only one survived, and yet now Naruto had dishonored that tradition by remaining alive when he, as was his right as the clan head, had ordered him dead. Sure, he could have had the boy killed when he lost the fight to Menma, which in retrospect he really should have done to ensure that the family tradition was upheld, but he thought to have the boy trained to be a mindless nin so that he could go on a suicide mission and at least do one thing useful before his death. But now that plan was in shambles. He needed to end the boy's life as soon as possible to make his family traditions right, and yet he also wanted to have a Yamanaka poke around in his head a bit, since he might have useful techniques of some sort in his head. One does not defeat elite Kumo shinobi single-handedly without techniques. "I will have my root shinobi assassinate the boy immediately," said Danzo without any sort of emotion in his voice. "No," said Minato simply as he thought about it clearly, "since he lives in Wave and is protected by whoever is killing your root, we have already sent there to try and obtain some of their technology. Sending more would do us no good. So how shall we approach this?" asked Danzo with a raised eyebrow. "Give me some time to think about it," said Minato as he waved the man out the door. "I'll think of something in due time." Danzo simply nodded as he left the room. While he would have usually just sent the root nin anyway regardless of what Minato ordered, he had to admit that their past attempts at infiltrating Wave had all failed, so sending more would gain them nothing. So he simply left Minato to his thoughts. While all this was happening, Hinata went home with her parents. There they sat down and enjoyed some nice calming tea as they questioned their daughter more on the subject of what had happened to her. Hinata had blushed the more she mentioned Naruto, and to be honest it made her parents a little weary since she was that age. But a quick activation of Hitomi's Byakugan and those fears were laid to rest, since Hinata still had her hymen, so at least this Naruto she was blushing over did not take advantage of her in her unconscious state, and they were honestly grateful for that fact alone. It was then that Hitomi had the idea to head out and meet the young man who had saved their daughter's life, mainly since it was the proper thing to do. Hayashi was in agreement to the idea, so he left to speak with the Hokage to let him know of their planned trip from the village. As he left, Hitomi, being a mother who saw the clear signs of a crush, couldn't help but tease her daughter about such things. Her teasing only made Hinata's face go darker as the blush increased, but eventually Hitomi stopped as Hayashi came back and told them to pack some supplies. He even requested that Niji come along since the young man needed a bit of vacation, seeing that he was just released from the hospital. He wanted Hanabi to come with them, but she made an excuse about how she needed to stay to train for the academy tests that were coming up shortly, so they let her stay. And as they all left to head towards Wave, the Hyuga elders were in their secret room, one that Hayashi was not aware of, and plotting. They had tried to get rid of Hinata via the Kumo shinobi they tipped off so that they could kidnap her when the village was not prepared for them. True, she would have been used as nothing more than a breeding sow once there, since the village was fanatically obsessed with the Byakugan, but they had spies in the village that would wait for the perfect time to kill her, so she never carried the bastard to full term. This way, no one would ever suspect them of their own involvement to the plot of eliminating the girl from the clan altogether. For years they have been trying to rid themselves of not only Hinata, but Hitomi as well, since they both had views that went against their clan's traditions of enslaving half their clan to serve them. Hayashi had that mindset in his youth, but once he married Hitomi she had managed to change his mind on the subject, and he was against it. Since then he had been trying for years to find a legal means to force the removal of the caged bird seal, but his efforts had borne nothing so far, and yet he still looked. The elders believed that Hitomi was the problem and had tried to kill her after she gave birth to her second daughter Hanabi, but that didn't work as well as they thought it would. As she had been asleep from all the labor pains in her weakened condition, they had one of their most devoted clan members try and poison her in her sleep with a special untraceable concoction, but Hayashi had returned to his wife's side as he was about to force it down her throat. The man had panicked, and fearing torture so that the truth would be told, drank the poison himself so that he would die and the plot to kill Hitomi would remain a mystery. It worked since Hayashi never figured out that the elders were behind this, but he remained by his wife's side every moment after that, so no new plans could be concocted to finish her off. Now their main problem was Hinata, who was just like her mother in her views of equality within the clan, and they would be damned if the little bitch managed to become the clan head and sully their clan's traditions. Hanabi had accepted the elders' views easily since she had the same mindset as them and saw her sister as a blight towards their clan as well as weak. She wore a mask that fooled her parents since they never noticed her true feelings on the matter and just assumed that she was against the seal as well, but she wasn't. Now the elders had the perfect chance to eliminate all three nuisances to their plans in one fell swoop, and in doing so have Hanabi take over as clan head. Sure, she was young, but the main factor of her agreeing with the caged bird seal made her perfect for the job. So with that in mind, the elders used the same network they did the last time to let Kumo know about the whereabouts of multiple unsealed Hyuga. Wave, 3 days later. The past few days had been busy for Naruto and his family. They all had separate jobs they were hired for, and when they weren't doing that they were out past the elemental countries scavenging old technology to find things that would improve the lives of the villagers. They had been doing this for a while, and while many would ask why they were searching for ruined tech like they were, it turned out 15 was a bit of a technological genius. He developed a machine that could skin just about anything non-organic, and within a few hours print out blueprints for said machine. This way they could build more of them. This was how they developed their weapons so as to protect the villagers with, as well as the mining gear, hydro dam generator for power, irrigation systems as well as greenhouses and a large biodome to grow, as well as protect their crops from harsh weather, security cameras that spanned the village yet none were inside people's houses. Trucks to load and unload materials to the loading docks so that they could then travel with it the usual way with horses and carts. The world was not ready for all this technology. Naruto knew that much about his world, and so he kept it within the one village since the people were kind and hard workers. They were not out to conquer the world or even out to eliminate another village because of past wars or political differences. No, these people simply wished to be left alone to work, and remain the trading hub of most of the countries. They sold materials to whoever paid them since that was their main business, and it was good. Yet Naruto had a feeling in his gut that when he let Hinata go after saving her, that his peaceful life was at an end for a while. And damn it, his gut was right yet again. Hinata and her family had arrived at the bridge, and what they saw amazed them a bit. The bridge had been made larger than what had been planned when the idea was first put to paper, and there was a reason for that. While the main part of it, which was the middle, was the same as most bridges, the sides had tracks on them. The reason for this was a railway system that transported people from one end of the bridge to the other side within a 10-minute span. Walking, at least for regular civilians, took about an hour. There was a group of benches with covering over them in case of rain, and a timetable that showed exactly when the next train came. Even Hinata was surprised to see this, since when she had left the village several days ago, she had failed to notice this at all. But then again, she was in a rush to get home, as well as the fact that a certain blonde man who saved her life was on her mind, and her body was essentially running on instinct as her mind was elsewhere. So Hinata and her family waited for the train, which arrived at the exact time mentioned on the chart. It wasn't too fancy, just a small one-person engine that was steam-powered with several covered cabins connected that had cushioned seats in them. The train could carry about 50 people at a time, which wasn't so bad since it was usually those 50 people who went out to cut down the trees in a nearby lumberyard anyway. So in 10 minutes Hinata and her family were at the front gate. There they were met by security, who asked them their names, home village, and whether they were there for business or pleasure. They answered the questions truthfully, and were then told to empty any and all things that were considered weapons into their own person lockboxes that they were then given a key for. There was a long list of things posted nearby that showed them exactly what the guard meant. So they obliged, and once done they were each given a key and told they could pick up their stuff on the way out, and to have a nice day with a genuine smile on his face. To the guards of the village, anyone willing to go through all that to visit was good in their minds, since they were not here to cause trouble. It was the ones who snuck around and entered fully equipped with their gear that was the problem, since they were more than likely here to try and steal what wasn't theirs to steal. Sure, they had cameras and guard towers that spanned the walls of the place, but to be honest, that pretty much stopped bandits, only since Shinobi had other means to get past their security. Well, it was lucky for them that Naruto and his brothers were coming up with a solution to that as they spoke, and to be honest, the guards were looking forward to it. So do you have any idea as to where this Naruto you spoke about is currently located? Asked Hitomi as her and the rest of their group were walking down the main street of the village. The place had improved over in time, with paved roads and more sturdy houses than what they had ever seen. Plus there were men building more stuff with tools they had never seen before. Hell, there was a man with a metallic mask on using a device that shot out flames to melt metal and mold it to another piece of it. Not really, said Hinata sheepishly, as she had no idea as to where he lived. Naruto had taken her to what she assumed was a hospital here, not his own personal property. She looked around to see if anything looked familiar at all, but to be honest she didn't quite remember this place very well, since she was here for only a short amount of time, as Naruto got her some supplies and then she was gone, and heading back home. So any idea as to where to start looking or even who to ask? Asked Niji. The man wanted to meet the man who had saved his cousin's life when she was kidnapped. Niji loved his cousin, who he saw more as a sister than a cousin. Well, I remember that he is well liked as well as respected in this village, so I guess we just ask around, said Hinata as she remembered how the people respected him the last time she was here. They had gone out of their way to greet him, which he returned. Whoa whoa, said a voice behind them that surprised them a bit since it was closer than they expected. They turned around to see a short purple-skinned man with a very strange yet large hat on his head. So it seems like my little brother's girlfriend has come back for seconds. What up? Miss my boy too much? Hinata's face burned dark red as 15 said that, with her parents looking at her with questioning eyes since they wanted to know if something happened that she didn't tell them. Nothing happened, squeaked out Hinata finally, since she was too embarrassed to say it normally. And yet you came back after less than a week, said 15 with a grin. Yet he then looked at her parents, and saw them sort of gaining a bit of a dark aura surrounding them, so he decided that he was done teasing the girl. So I am guessing that you all here to see my little brother Naruto? That is correct, said Hayashi with a bit of authority to his voice. Well, follow me and I'll give him a call, said 15 as he walked towards his bar. The Hyuga looked at themselves for a second before they followed the strange man. They walked into the bar and saw another man there behind the counter polishing glasses. Hey 15, said Tazuna with a cheerful smile on his face since he was having a good day today. Who are your friends? Not really sure on most their names, said 15 with a shrug. But I know my little bro's girl Hinata there and I assume that the rest are her family. So I am going to give Naruto a call. Can you hook them up with a few drinks on the house? Is my daughter pregnant with her second child? Asked Tazuna with a raised eyebrow. Motherfucker. I don't know about that. Exactly, said Tazuna with a grin as 15 went into the back. Tazuna looked at Hinata's parents for about 3 seconds before he whipped out the alcohol that he needed to make the drinks for his guests. For Hitomi he made a pina colada, yet for Hayashi, who seemed like he would prefer a stiffer drink if his demeanor was anything to go on, he poured scotch on the rocks. They accepted the drinks given to them, and they had to admit that they hit the spot perfectly. Tazuna smiled as he saw them enjoy the drinks he prepared. For years he had always simply drank the alcohol that he could get his hands on. But now that he was introduced to many more forms of it, he relished in the creation of new drinks. It also became known to him as he created them that he realized that he had a gift at creating the perfect drinks for people just by looking at them. This made him popular to visitors as well as the residents of the villagers. As they drank what was given to them, Naruto was in his workshop fixing a truck. It had something wrong with the engine, and he had his tools to fix it in hand when he heard the beep that signaled that someone was calling him. They set up the phone towers throughout the village, and even had live-time video calls on the receiver as well. Sure, it was only available within the village, but it worked wonders. Naruto took his rag and wiped the grease and oil off his hand before he pushed the button to accept the call. He saw his brother 15 on the screen. Yo Naruto, said 15 with a smirk on his face. What's up 15? Asked Naruto. I am in the middle of fixing a truck engine for someone here, so can it wait a bit? I'm gonna have to go with a no on that little bro, said 15. You need to get your ass down to my bar ASAP. Fine, said Naruto with a sigh, I'll be there in a few. He then pushed the button to end the call, and went to the sink to fully wash his hands of all the stuff that was sticking to them. Once done, he went and grabbed his jacket and put it on. He had updated his wardrobe since he had been here, and he had started to wear combat pants instead of shorts. Yet the jackets he had were the same, albeit different colors, with the one he was wearing now being black and red in color. Naruto stepped outside and took to the air to head to the bar quickly. He had a feeling that this was another one of 15's stupid-ass surprise attacks that he seemed to like to do for some reason. So he would pop in, kick 15's ass and be back to finish his job within 10 minutes tops. So with a quick sigh, he walked through the doors with closed eyes. Okay 15, said Naruto as he walked into the bar, I swear to whatever gods that be that if this is another one of your bullshit attempts at a surprise attack I am going to murder. Oh. Naruto had to stop his sentence near the end there since he saw Hinata standing there with a smile as well as a blush on her face. Naruto's face blushed a bit as well, but not to the extent hers was. Well, hello there, said Hitomi with a smile on her face as she tried to end the awkward silence. She as well as the rest of their group were surprised that Naruto looked exactly like Menma as Hinata had described him, with the only exception being the whisker-looking birthmarks on his cheeks. I am Hitomi, and this is my husband Hayashi, and this young man is Hinata's cousin Neji. Oh, said Naruto as he quelled the blush on his face and smiled in a bit of a goofy way. Well, it's nice to meet you. The name is Naruto Zero. Welcome to my brother's bar as well as Wave Country. It's fairly impressive, said Hayashi as he sized the man who his daughter was so caught up with analytical eyes as most fathers do when a man enters their daughter's lives. Well, we strive to advance ourselves, said Naruto as he walked closer to them. It helps to gather as well as mine resources to sell to other people. We saw so many things we never saw before while on our way here, said Neji. Well, it seems that you, my friend, need to get out and see the world more if that is the case, said Naruto with a bit of a chuckle. His response made Neji smile a bit since it was true that he needed to get out more and see the world. Yo bro, said 15 as he waved a bit to get his attention, so are you going to just ignore your girlfriend blushing over here? He then began to laugh hard as he saw Naruto's eye began to twitch a bit. Mrs. Hyuga, said Naruto as he picked up a bottle in his hand, would you be so kind as to take 3 steps to your left? Hitomi simply nodded as she did just that, and as soon as she took that 3rd step Naruto threw the bottle at 15's head. It hit the mark and shattered, but at least it shut 15 up. Naruto then pulled a few bills from his jacket and placed them on the counter. This was not the first time he did this sort of thing, nor would it be the last. He always paid for the bottle that broke. So now that my brother is down for a few minutes, said Naruto as he took a seat, what brings you all out this way? Because to be honest I never really expected to see Hinata here again, or at least so soon. Maybe in a few months or even a year, but it's been less than a week so this is a bit surprising. We came to thank you for rescuing our daughter, said Hayashi. Oh, said Naruto as he rubbed the back of his head, well thanks for that I guess. I'm just surprised you came all this way to say that when a letter would have done just as well. It's a family tradition to thank the person personally, said Hitomi with a smile. Well, all the same I thank you. So how many siblings do you have? Besides the purple midget that I knocked out? 2. While we may not be related by blood, we are still family nonetheless. So was it an adoption? In a way, yes. But I don't really wish to talk about it. No offense to you, it's just that I barely know you, said Naruto as he stood up. It was at that point that an alarm was heard as a red light flashed on the wall behind the counter. Naruto growled as he saw this and his fists clenched hard. What is that? Asked Neji since he was curious. It is the alarm that tells us that we have shinobi intruders, said Naruto as he saw 15 hop back to his feet. Naruto didn't have to say anything since 15 knew exactly what the alarm meant. This happened more often than not since there were so many greedy people in the world. The guards are equipped to defend against bandits, but me and my brothers deal with the shinobi that intrude. Naruto simply walked out of the bar to take care of the problem. Should we help him? Asked Neji as he saw Naruto leave. Don't y'all worry yourselves about him, said 15 as he jumped over the counter and began to walk towards the door as well. This isn't our first rodeo. His response only baffled and confused them since they had no idea as to what in the hell a rodeo even was. Yet they followed 15 outside anyway, and there they saw Naruto facing down a group of a dozen Kumo shinobi. The fact that it was Kumo shinobi made the color on their faces disappear. So what exactly is it that you want? Asked Naruto as he stood there. Because I'm fairly certain it's not building materials since you snuck your way into the village instead of coming in the proper way like everyone else does. We have received information that your village has several shinobi from the Hyuga clan, said the obvious leader of the group. Naruto looked at the man and wondered just why the hell the man looked so familiar to him for some reason. He just couldn't put his finger on it, yet it was there, and pissing him off since he couldn't think of the reason why it did. Okay, said Naruto. And that means what exactly? You will hand them over to us immediately or else we will use force to get what we want. Ah, said Naruto as he saw the big picture here, so you are just like the last group that tried to kidnap Hinata. You are here to enslave and breed them for their bloodline. But let me tell you something, the last group failed to kidnap her since I killed them, so why the hell do you believe that this time will be any different? Wait a minute, said the leader as he growled, you killed those men? That I did, replied Naruto with a grin on his face. You bastard! Yelled out the leader in pure rage, you killed my brother! Your brother, said Naruto with a raised eyebrow as he thought about the last group for a second before it hit him. This man looked like the leader of the last group, just younger and without the eye patch. This revelation caused Naruto to laugh hard since to him it was hilarious. Oh, I remember his. He died like a bitch. Naruto's statement caused the leader to growl more as he clenched his teeth. And unless you want me to do to you as I did him, said Naruto as he stopped laughing and started to get serious, I suggest you take your group and leave our village alone. As long as they remain within it legally they are under our protection, and we protect our own. And after you get home to deliver your message of failure, tell your leader to get his bitch ass here himself so that I can shove my foot so far up his ass that I will be wearing him as a one-of-a-kind sock. Naruto's words caused a massive silence to follow. The Hyuga, because they never thought they would hear such threats would ever be heard, and from a teen no less. The Kumo shinobi were just stunned was all. But they got over it, and the first person to do anything was the leader. He took 2 steps forward in an attempt to kill the brat that not only insulted their leader, but threatened them as well. He only took 2 steps though, since in a repeat of history Naruto rushed forward and punched right into the man's chest. Just so you know, said Naruto with a smirk, this is the exact same way your brother died, like a bitch. He then blasted the man through the chest with Ki, sending him flying backwards. 15 Keep them safe please. Should we help him? Asked Niji for the second time, though from what he saw it appeared that Naruto didn't really need help. Nah, said 15 as he stood in front of them and took a swig from his flask. Little bro has got this in the bag. So what did we miss? Asked 13 as he as well as 14 arrived behind the Hyuga. He would have waited for an answer, but it was then that he saw Hinata in the group and put 2 and 2 together. Well, if it isn't our brother's love interest. How do you do? Said 13 as he tipped his hat to her. While salvaging the ruins of the world, he managed to find another hat akin to the one that Naruto blew up. He even had the means to make more on the off chance this one was destroyed as well. You know, said 15, these motherfucks came in and demanded his girlfriend be handed over. He took response to that and insulted one of them into attacking, and well, you know how that went judging from the body you see over there. So here is what is going to happen, said Naruto as he cracked his knuckles first then his neck. I am going to keep killing you one by one until those surviving finally get it through their thick skulls to simply leave. Just because you killed our squad leader doesn't mean you can take the rest of us on, said another of the Kumo shinobi, so don't let it go to your head, boy. Oh, he did it now, said 15 as he walked back a bit, as did the others as well as the Hyuga, who seemed to understand what they were doing. What happened? Asked Hinata, who was curious as to why they were backing away from Naruto. If there is just one thing you need to know about our little bro, said 15 as he took a swig of his flask, simply remember to never call him boy. As they heard this, they all looked back towards the fight that was unfolding in front of them and saw the Kumo shinobi laughing at Naruto as he stood there with his hands clenched into fists, and clenching his teeth. The man who insulted him would have said something else to piss Naruto off, but the only thing that came out of his mouth was a scream. Naruto had moved faster than anyone had expected and kicked the man in the side hard. The blow broke his arm in several places as well as multiple ribs that when they broke pierced vital internal organs. So the man fell to his knees as he coughed out blood, but then Naruto simply snapped his neck by grabbing his head and twisting it around so it was backwards. This unsettled the rest of the group since they didn't expect this young boy to have such strength. Even the Hyuga were surprised by this show of strength. Niji activated his Byakugan and was shocked to see that Naruto had no chakra network, which was a set of lines and round bits where the pressure points were. Yet Naruto's entire body emanated with power that slightly hurt his eyes to look at, kind of like looking at the sun at an angle. The rest of the Kumo shinobi quickly shook off the shock of the moment, and then proceeded to attack in full. Naruto got into a defensive fighting stance and killed them off one by one using the various styles that he himself had to face in the simulation. He mastered them all after so many defeats, yet now they were helping him easily defeat these nin. Even when they used swords or jutsu, he was able to dodge their attacks with his speed and technique. After a few minutes, they all lay dead on the ground, and when they were Naruto simply sighed since this was becoming a common thing nowadays, and he was getting tired of it. Sure, this time they were after something other than their technology, but still they had invaded their home to steal something that wasn't theirs to have. Sorry you had to see that, said Naruto as he sheepishly rubbed the back of his head, but I wasn't really expecting intruders today. That's okay, said Hinata with a smile on her face, you were protecting your home as well as us. And for that you have our thanks, said Hayashi as he politely bowed to the young man who had protected them. Oh stop, said Naruto with a goofy grin. It was really nothing. But all that aside, said Hitomi since something came to her mind, how often does this sort of thing happen? Too much, said 13. These fools done try and take our property about once if not twice a week. And it's idiots from all over the place. But why not just share this stuff with the other villages to stop all the attempts of theft? Asked Niji since it seemed like the simplest solution to their problem. Because these tools were meant to help people live, said Naruto with a shake of his head. The tools we have allow us to build things to better our lives. Our mining tools allow us to mine deeper into the ground while making it safer. Our vehicles make it so we can easily transport cargo to where it needs to go. Our tools are meant for collecting, and yet the moment any shinobi village gets their hands on such things, they will be altered and used for war one way or another. So we keep it here since we are a village full of traders, not soldiers. We are neutral to all since we sell materials to those who pay us for them. And that is the way we shall keep it. We are not selfish, we are just not going to add more ways for people to kill each other, since the shinobi already have more than enough means to do that now. Well, when you put it like that, said Niji, since he could understand the reasoning behind it. Big brother, said a voice from afar that made the group turn their heads to see who it was. Granted, Naruto knew who it was already as well as his brothers, but the Hyuga did not. There they saw little Inari running towards them with his young smile on his face. Yet that smile disappeared as one of the Kumo shinobi popped out of the ground and grabbed the boy from behind. This surprised them all, even Naruto, who had thought he had eliminated all the Kumo shinobi. But a quick look proved otherwise, since there were a dozen that came to the village, and yet there were only 11 bodies. Surrender the Hyuga, said the man, or else this child dies. Wait, said Naruto with a raised eyebrow, are you serious? Do you really think that this will work out for you? I'm not playing around. I'm not saying you are, said Naruto with a shrug, I'm simply calling you an idiot. Shut up, Naruto, said Hinata, who was worried for Inari's safety. What are you doing? Trust me, said Naruto with a smile that calmed her down to see. Everything will be alright. Last chance? Shouted the man in anger as he pulled out a kunai and held it close to Inari's throat. So let me get this straight. You want me to trade 4 people for 1 child? 4 people who are not from this village, don't even know the boy who you are threatening's name, as well as fully trained shinobi? You are one man, so how do you expect to detain them? They outnumber you as well as overpower you. What? You think that threatening 1 child is going to force them into compliance? His blood will be on their hands. Okay, you know what, said Naruto with a sigh. Inari, go ahead. Really, big brother? Asked Inari with a smile on his face. Yep. Let him have it. Inari laughed in joy as he slammed both his elbows into the man holding him hostage. This caused the man to double over in pain, but then Inari socked the man in the chest, which caused him to cough out blood from the blow. The looks of shock the Hyuga gave were utterly priceless to see as they saw these events take place. Inari swept-kicked the man off his feet, and when he landed on the ground Inari jumped up and slammed down on the man's neck with both feet, crushing it, and killing the man himself. Well done, Inari, said Naruto, and now you got the real-world experience you always wanted. So later we will continue on to the more advanced forms of training. Inari jumped for joy as he heard that since he had wanted to move on from the basics for a while. Naruto kept telling him that he needed more real-life experience before then, but not he did, so there was no excuse to stop him. I know exactly what you are going to ask, said Naruto as he once again paid attention to the Hyuga family. How big is your? Started 15 in a joking manner before 14 punched him in the head so that he slammed into the ground. It was a good thing too, since Hinata's face was blushing once more and would have most likely suffered a massive nosebleed if he had finished that sentence. Thank you, 14, said Naruto as he saw 14 nodded towards him, but allow me to explain. Me and my brothers here do not use chakra as you do. Chakra is an elemental form of energy, while the energy we use is more raw power than anything else. It is known as Ki. It allows us to strengthen our bodies beyond normal human limits, as well as plenty of other things that I never got to use in that fight. And as you saw, it allowed a 6-year-old child to essentially defeat a grown man easily. Now, while in reality Inari there probably would have lost in a straight-up fight. Hey! Shouted Inari, who believed he could have won that fight easily no matter the situation. Inari, hush, said Naruto, which made Inari pout a bit as he grumbled to himself, but since the man wasn't expecting that, he was caught off guard. For the last several months I have told him to keep his strength hidden from others, since we live in a world where if you are seen with a bloodline or an ability that others want, they will try and kidnap you to force you to work for them or breed children to do it instead. Inari is young, so I thought to keep it a secret till he was older. That is amazing, said Hitomi, as many things went through her head as she heard this. What she was unaware of was that the same thing was going on with Hayashi as well. For years, the clan elders had been trying to force him to place the caged bird seal on his eldest daughter on the grounds that her method of their clan fighting style was not the same as they have used since their founding, and as such should be made a branch member to seal away the shame she would bring to their clan name. Yet Hayashi had seen firsthand the power that Hinata possessed with her style. In his mind, it was a good thing to see his clan changing, growing stronger with the times. But the elders feared change, since if allowed to happen then they would become obsolete, and the power they coveted would simply vanish from their grasp. And not here was a man who knew of a means to empower the body in a way that went beyond the normal means of chakra. Hayashi always feared that one day there would be a time where his daughter would have to fight for her right to remain free, and now it seemed like the means to grant her the strength needed to do just that had appeared before them. Young man, said Hayashi in a serious tone of voice, would you be able to teach another the ways of this Ki as you called it? I should be able to, said Naruto with a shrug. While I am no master of it, Inari being the first person I ever taught, I believe I'm doing a good job so far. Then allow me to request that you teach my daughter Hinata. This statement shocked both Hinata as well as Naruto, since he was so not expecting that out of the blue. They were both blushing at that, which made Hitomi slightly chuckle, since it was cute to see in her eyes. Are you sure about that? Asked Naruto. I am sure, said Hayashi with conviction in his voice. Hinata, said Naruto as he looked at the blushing young woman, is that what you wish? Hinata couldn't even answer him, and simply nodded her head in acceptance. Well then I'll do it. Wonderful, said Hayashi with a genuine smile on his face. He couldn't wait to see the looks of the elders' faces, that was if they were still alive at that point, when Hinata blew their expectations of her out the water with her sudden increase in power. Well, it is getting kind of late, said Naruto as he looked up and saw the sun setting, so allow me to treat you to a night at our most comfortable inn. We don't have a fancy hotel since this place is not really a tourist destination, so there is no need for one. And with that, Naruto did as he said and put them up at the main inn of the village. The inn was there for people who came later in the day and wanted to sleep so that they could head out in the morning with the materials they bought. And after the bill was paid, the Hyuga family slept peacefully, with a certain young woman continuing to blush well into the night as she dreamed about a certain blonde individual. The next morning, Naruto arrived to treat them to breakfast, which they enjoyed, and then saw them off as they collect their belongings from their lock boxes and boarded the train once more to head out from the village. And as they did, Naruto couldn't help but smile a bit, since it seemed that things would be okay. 2 weeks later, Naruto was once again in his workshop, still working on the same truck he had been working on when Hinata and her family arrived. It seemed like whenever he fixed one problem, another just popped up out of the blue. And right now he was honestly considering just blowing it up, since it was beginning to piss him off to see that all his work wasn't really helping things. Yet as he growled to himself in his silent rage, he heard the chime that signaled that someone had rang the front gate bell. Their house had a high wall surrounding it, not to keep people out, since Shinobi could easily just hop over it since it was about twice the size of an average person. It was more for privacy than anything else. So he donned his jacket, washed his hands and made his way to the front gate, all the while wondering who needed what to be fixed this time. Yet to his surprise, instead of another customer, there stood Hinata, and others as well. Hey Hinata, said Naruto with a smile as he saw her there with a large group of people alongside her. It's good to see you again so soon. And I see you brought friends, oh. His smile disappeared as he saw the absolute last person he wanted to see here. Menma Namikaze. Their group consisted of the rookie 12 and their senseis. But there was also a pale-looking one whose face was devoid of any and all emotion, and to be honest it was fairly creepy to see such a face on someone like that. Naruto's hands clenched into a fist as he saw the man who he was once proud to call his brother, but then was taught a harsh lesson on the matter that Menma may be his brother by blood, but not by family love or a bind of any sort, since he had beat him to an inch of his life. Yet another thing caught his attention in the form of one Sasuke Uchiha. He raised an eyebrow at the young man, and for some reason it pissed Sasuke off to see him do so. "What the hell are you staring at?" demanded Sasuke. "To be honest," said Naruto, "I'm looking at your hair. It's just so ridiculous." "You take that back," growled Sasuke, since he liked his hair the way it was, "because if you don't I will break you." "Are you sure about that?" asked Naruto as he looked at him with a quizzical look on his face. "What was that?" "You look like an extra from a budget porno flick," said Naruto. As he did, Sasuke's eyes opened wide in disbelief, since that was not something he was expecting to hear today, or in his lifetime in general. The kind where everybody gets tested, even the cameraman. "Oh," said Sasuke, since he was still shocked at the very strange response, and couldn't think of a proper retort for the matter. "Did they find you in some alley?" continued Naruto. "Were you homeless? Did you get your start in bum fights? Do you have any actual friends? Any relationships at all that aren't about your clan or your bloodline?" "I have an older brother," said Sasuke dumbly. "Oh, that poor only child," said Naruto with a quiet chuckle to himself before he got serious once again. "So now that I got that out of the way, can someone please explain why you are, except for Hinata since I gave her permission to visit at any time, here?" "We are on a mission to recover you and take you back to the village for desertion," said Kakashi. "Desertion?" asked Naruto as he stood there for a second before he couldn't control himself and began to laugh uncontrollably, since it was so funny to hear the reason that Minato lied about to get his shinobi to come after him. "I'm sorry, but that was just too funny for me to hear. I thank you for making me laugh so hard. But I'm not going anywhere, since this is my home and I wish to remain within it." "I don't give a damn what you think," said Menma with a growl as he stepped angrily towards him, since he was pissed that the brother he had utterly defeated and essentially left for dead, since what happened after the fight should have been the death of him, was now in possession of a spine and refusing a direct order. "You are coming with us back to Konoha to face charges of desertion, and if you refuse you will face the full force of the rightful heir to the Namake's name." Naruto didn't even flinch or react as someone who took a threat seriously. He simply moved faster than anyone in the group was able to see, even Hinata as well as Niji, who had their Byakugan active to try and keep pace, and punched Menma square in the face right on the nose, causing it to bleed a little from the force of the blow. "Ah!" shouted Menma as he held his face in pain, since it hurt like hell to just be punched in the face like that. "You fucking asshole! You punched me in the face!" Naruto simply grinned before he punched him again in the exact same spot as his first punch. You did it again. "Should we do something about this?" asked Shino to Kiba in a low voice so as to not be heard. "No," said Kiba with a chuckle. For years he had always gotten his ass handed to him whenever he fought Menma, so it was extremely amusing to see him get his ass kicked for once. "This is hilarious to watch." He chuckled as he finished that sentence, since he saw Menma getting punched yet again in the face in the same spot. "Stop it!" shouted Menma in anger. "Fucking stop it now!" Yet Naruto didn't heed his demand and did it yet again, all the while having a smirk on his face, since his so-called prodigy of a former brother was just standing there and taking it. Sure, he was impressed that he could take such brutal punishment, but it was still so very idiotic of him to do so. "Fuck!" Naruto punched him yet again, honestly growing bored with this by this point. "Dear Kami, what did Dad tell me to do in this kind of situation?" Menma thought as he held his face in pain. He felt the Kyuubi heal his bruises, yet it stung like crazy as it did. But as he stood there he remembered the specific lesson his dad taught him that went with this situation. It appeared to him like a thought bubble. "Menma," said Minato in his memory, "if you ever find yourself being punched repeatedly in the face, always remember to." The memory never finished, since Naruto punched Menma in the face in the exact same spot as he did all the other times. "For fuck's sake! He cut off Dad!" shouted Menma as he held his face for what felt to him was like the 100th time. "So," asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow, "are you going to dodge any of these?" "Oh," said Menma as he remembered the rest of his father's lesson about what to do in this situation, "that's what Dad told me to do." Menma screamed out in pain as Naruto punched him yet again in the exact same spot. Naruto could only sigh at Menma's stupidity in just standing there. Sigh! Screamed out Menma in rage, since he was pissed that not only were those who came alongside him to complete the mission, both sensei as well as fellow same-ranked shinobi were just standing there and doing absolutely nothing to stop him from getting hurt, but he was in fact getting punched in the face by his loser of a former brother who the last time they met he was defeated easily by him. Support. Sai pulled out a book that he read to help understand how to communicate with people properly, since he had been trained most of his life to be emotionless like he was by Danzo. Well, you are very strong, said Sai as he put the book away after skimming it a bit on the chapter on what to say to someone as a form of support. You have very handsome eyes, and honestly you are the only genin here who I can count on. I meant punch him, you emotionless bastard, shouted Menma before he calmed down, since he was complimented though, thanks. You know it really cheered me up. Menma couldn't say anything else since Naruto punched him again in the face. Oh fuck. I think he broke something that time. Menma finally got the picture, and jumped back to be outside of Naruto's striking range. Now while I would love nothing more than to simply end you here and now, said Naruto with a growl, there are literally a million better things I would rather be doing right now. So since I am a fair man, I am going to give you all one chance to leave my home in one piece. If you decide to fight, well, that won't end well for your side. And what do you think one guy can do against all of us, said Sasuke, who was still pissed off about the insults that Naruto said earlier. Who said I was alone? Asked Naruto with a smirk as his brothers fell from the sky, each with a spike they drove into the ground. The 3 spikes then activated and erected a force field that kept those from Konoha contained. Sure, a few of them tried to find a way out and touch the field, but the high-voltage electrical shock soon stopped any and all attempts, since it was rather painful to experience. Only Menma was outside of the field, since he was not near the main group when they locked them into place, since he had jumped away after Naruto punched him in the face so many times. Naruto as well as 15 had built these with the idea of subduing trespassers before resorting to straight-up brute force. They were more than just emotionless killing machines after all. Now don't be trying to escape your cage there, said 13 with a chuckle as he saw the few people who tried get shocked for it. Now, said Naruto as he stood there with a grin on his face and his hands in his pockets, since he was not afraid in the slightest. Since the others are no longer in our way, we can fight unabated. And what makes you think that this time will go any differently than the last time we fought? Asked Menma with a smug grin on his face as well. Time, said Naruto simply with a slight shrug of his shoulders. Well, I don't really care what you think, since there is no amount of time in the world that will grant you the ability to defeat me like you think you will. Then let's cut the brotherly banter between us, and put your arrogance to the test then, shall we? Said Naruto with another simple shrug of his shoulders, since in all fairness, he was not afraid of Menma anymore. And just how do you propose I do that? Simple, said Naruto with a chuckle. I want you to hit me as hard as you can. Oh, is that right? Asked Menma as he got into an offensive stance to do just that. Now hold on there for a moment, said Naruto as he held up a hand. You might have misheard me. Not half as hard, or some arbitrary percentage. I want you to hit me as hard as you can. And if I don't play along with your unusual request? Well, then it just proves how weak you really are now, does it? Menma didn't respond to that insult lightly or even with words. He charged forward with speed that made him a blur to those observing this happening and appeared in front of Naruto with his fist punching him square in the face. He was still pissed about the repeated punches to his own face, and his rage empowered him to hit harder than usual. Well, consider that nerve pinched, said Naruto with a sinister grin on his face as he felt no damage to his face whatsoever. It was like someone shot air at it, since he felt the air current that went with a strong punch, but not the punch itself. That's not possible, said Menma nervously as Naruto used one of his hands to grab his own and pulled it off his face. How are you this strong? Simple. I grew up, said Naruto before he punched Menma square in the chest with enough force to blast him backwards through the wall that surrounded their house as well as several trees in the distance before he stopped. The Kyuubi began to heal his body the second he was punched through a wall, but now that the damage was worse than before it would take a bit longer. So while he heals from that and then come back, said Naruto as he cracked his knuckles a bit as he stood there, I am curious as to what exactly Minato told you to get you all out this way to try and, damn, what is the correct word for this, Well, kidnap me from my home. Not sure if that is the right word to use given the fairly strange circumstances leading up to this, but it'll do. No one answered at first since they were all shaking in their shoes. Well, all but Hinata was shaking, since she as well as her parents had seen him use such power before when he killed off the Kumo shinobi that came to capture the three of them not long ago. They just saw a person quite literally punch someone through a wall and trees with strength that seemed to rival if not surpass that of the legendary Sannin Tsunade herself. But eventually it was Kurenai herself who composed herself enough to speak up and answer the question. We were told by our Lord Hokage that his son Naruto ran away from the village years ago without a trace. That he looked for you for years via his sensei's spy network, and when he finally found you he tried to send people to recover you and you killed them. So the charges were made as desertion since you refused to come back as well as treason since you killed Konoha shinobi. Those were Konoha shinobi? Asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. To be honest, he didn't have any idea as to where those blank-face masked shinobi belonged to. He had sent the heads to Konoha as a means to instill fear into Minato over time. Now that he knew they were from there, he was not sorry about it. Well, truth be told, he wasn't sorry to begin with, but now he knew he sent the heads to the right place at least. I truly thought they were just here to steal my stuff as well as me in an attempt to use me to breed more with my power. Well, now I don't feel so bad about it since they were from there. Why do you hate our village so much? Asked Hinata sweetly, since in all honesty she is not afraid of Naruto since the man had no anger towards her, nor did she sense any sort of malicious intent towards her group. It's not the village I hate, Hinata, said Naruto with a shake of his head, but a few select people within it. Now I am just gonna come out. I knew your ass was gay, shouted 15. I fucking called it. 15, said Naruto as his eye twitched in anger. Do you see that wall behind you? Yeah, said 15 as he looked back for a second. What about it? Naruto didn't answer his question though, since all he did was rush forward and punch him in the face hard enough to send 15 flying backwards. 15 hit the wall to the point that his head was stuck in it, while the rest of his body was still sticking out of it. Now, as I was saying before I was interrupted, said Naruto with a growl before he took a deep breath to calm down a bit, I am just going to come out and say that I am sorry. Sorry about what? Asked Hinata, who was curious as to what exactly he was sorry about. I lied to you the last time we met, said Naruto with a bit of a sad tone. He did not like to lie, and especially to someone who he considered a friend. I told you that I had no family other than these guys you see here, who I said were more of an adoptive family since we went through the same trauma. But the truth is that I am related to Menma as well as Minato, regretfully. Don't go speaking ill of my sensei, said Kakashi with a slight glare. Someone please slap him, said Naruto with a sigh. God was the one to do so since Kakashi was rude to interrupt. Thank you? Now why I hate those men is quite simple. I was disowned by them when I was 7. That remark caused them all to gasp in surprise since they did not expect that. Think about it, said Naruto as he stood there with his arms crossed. In all these years I was gone, has Minato mentioned me by name even once before he sent you out to find me? The group all actually had to think about it. And to be honest, not a single one of them even knew who he was before today, which was strange to think about since they should have known about the son of the Hokage. And now that they thought about it, they never saw him, or Menma either, until he was 7 years old, and up and about. The reason for that was that Minato kept his sons indoors mostly, away from the public, so that the day they fought with one of them being alive as the victor to their match, and then show them to the village when the time was right. That's what I thought, said Naruto with a smug grin on his face. The man sired me as well as my brother, and yet never spoke a word about me. It was as if I didn't exist in the first place. That's just awful, said Hinata in sadness, since that was fairly depressing to hear about. The other genin agreed with her as they nodded their heads. Indeed, said Naruto with a pissed-off look on his face. But the worst part of it was the fact that the man who I once called father forced me and my former brother to fight with everything we had. Now I was strong back then, but my love for my own brother was my undoing since it stayed my hand and made me hold back in our fight. While I believed that he felt the same way towards me, it was not the case since he beat me within an inch of my life. Yet while I lay on my knees beaten and bloody, my pain did not cease. A seal activated that sucked my chakra as well as the second half of the QB that resided within me and put it into Menma. I passed out from the pain, and yet when I woke up from what I assumed what would be my death, I wasn't in a hospital bed like I should have been or even my own room to recover from my injuries. No. I awoke in a dank dark cell in chains where I was told by an elderly man with a cane who I learned was named Danzo that I had been disowned and thrown away like I was nothing. The looks of shock only increased as he told his story, and for the next 2 weeks they tortured me, tried to break my spirit to turn me into a mindless drone. Yet I would not break no matter what they did to me. And when he saw that I wouldn't, he ordered one of his men to throw my near-dead body into a river since he believed I wasn't even worth burying once dead, and let nature do it for him. What happened afterwards is something that will remain known to only me and my fellow brothers here. Yet to make a long story short, I was deemed worthless by 3 different men and was forced to pick myself up against the odds when others said I should die. And yet now here you are, ordered by the very same man who robbed me of my childhood as well as my home and family. Do you really think that I would let you take away my happiness after I suffered so much? And yet before anyone else could say anything, Menma had finally made his way back. He had lines of dried blood on his face, and a seriously pissed-off look on his face. "I'll look who it is," said Naruto as he turned around to face Menma, just as expected. "You will pay for that," growled Menma as he stood there enraged that he had been hurt in such a manner by someone who he thought was weaker than him. "One wall," started Naruto as he turned his head a bit to look behind Menma, and once again placed his hands into his pocket, "and 6 trees say otherwise. But you see, Menma, that is what you get for not listening. But since I know you have trouble following the most basic of directions, I'm gonna give you one last chance. You, me, hard as you can. Are we clear?" "Crystal," said Menma with all the anger he could muster in his voice. Menma yelled out in rage as he called up the power of the QB within him to empower the Rasengan that he used both hands to form. The orb of chakra stabilized, but his fury pushed it further than what he was usually capable of. For the past year he had been trying to perfect the Rasengan that his father had trained him in. Yet when he mastered the base jutsu, he had tried to inject elements into it to make it more powerful. He failed time and time again, and it only infuriated him with every failure to do so. Jiraiya had been the voice of reason and explained that what he needed was pure raw emotion. And it turned out he was right, since his pure rage allowed him to finally go the extra mile and complete the final form of the Rasengan, since he infused it with wind chakra as well as lightning which was crackling out of it. "Oh ho," chuckled Naruto as he felt the power that was going into the attack. "I can actually feel that." "In a moment," screamed Menma as he pushed the last bit of his power into the jutsu before he cut it off, "all you will be feeling is oblivion." "That or disappointment," laughed Naruto as he stood there unfazed by all this, "so go ahead, Menma. Flip that coin." Menma then screamed in rage as he launched the attack towards Naruto. Naruto simply smiled as he stood his ground and didn't move from his spot. He heard as Hinata called out for him to move, but he simply winked at her, which made her blush heavily as she saw this, but then nearly cried as she saw her crush get hit by the attack that then exploded with enough force that decimated half of Naruto and his brother's house as well as a large portion of the wall that surrounded it. Naruto cried out Hinata as the tears began to flow from her eyes. She owed the man so much for saving not just her twice from the forces of Kumo, but her mother, father, and cousin as well as. Now the man she had a crush on was obviously dead from taking that jutsu head-on like that. "Don't worry your pretty little face about our little brother," said 13 as he pulled his hat back in place since the blast made it crooked. "It will take so much more than that small amount of power to eliminate him. But I feel sorry for the stubborn boy over there since he plumb done gone dagon done it now." "Can anyone please explain just what the hell he just said?" asked Kiba in confusion. "Well, let me make it simple for you, mutt. Keep watching." They did as 13 said and watched as the dust and smoke from the debris was still thick in the air. Menma stood there for a second as he laughed since he thought that he won the fight. Yet his laugh was cut short when he heard a voice he was not expecting to hear. "Well, would you look at that," said Naruto as the dust began to disperse. A few moments later Naruto was fully visible, and yet his shirt as well as his jacket was gone since the jutsu had basically disintegrated them both from existence. You managed to destroy my favorite shirt as well as at least half my house. If your plan was to piss me off, you have accomplished it with flying colors. But I have to take off points since you missed the spot. Naruto! Shouted out Hinata in joy to see him still alive, but then she got a good look at him, and then fainted with a major nosebleed. Naruto, for lack of a better word, was ripped as hell. He had perfect abs and muscles in all the right places from a combination of his altering by Dr. Gero as well as intense exercise for the past year. Now while Hinata fainted from seeing him like this, the rest of the females had blushes on their faces from seeing his young ripped body. So now that you have shown me the worst you can do, said Naruto as he pulled his hands out of his pockets, which he was glad that his pants were still intact. If the girls blushed from seeing his shirtless body, well, if they saw just what else he was packing lower on his body, they would all end up like Hinata was with nosebleeds. I have a simple question to ask you. Have you ever felt true fear at least once in your life? That feeling that your life would end by the hands of another, and that it was out of your control. Because I have, at least once in my life, and by your own hands ironically. I think that it is only fair that I return the favor to you. Why would I fear you? Growled Menma in rage that his attack failed. You are weak compared to me. Is the fact that I'm still standing here when there is so much destruction behind me not proof enough that I am not the same person who you beat within an inch of their life? Menma yelled in rage as he launched several explosive kunai at him. The explosions hit him, but even they did nothing to him. But then again, if the person you are throwing them at was capable of withstanding the full force of a Rasengan head-on, was it so hard to believe that minor explosions would do nothing as well? I'm gonna go out on a limb here and assume that you're answering my question with no. So allow me to do the brotherly thing and show you. Let's put it to a number, shall we? 5. Naruto rushed forward and kicked Menma square in the chest, the impact of which caused an imprint of his foot to appear for a split second on Menma's back before it disappeared. Menma coughed up a lot of blood from the damage done to his organs that the Kyuubi began to heal from. He was launched back and embedded into the wall behind him, yet unlike 15 his entire body was stuck inside of it. Naruto walked over to Menma calmly since to him this was nothing more than a morning workout. But as soon as he got near him, Menma lunged forward in an attempt to punch him, but Naruto quickly fell onto his back as he shouted for and kicked Menma straight up into the air. Menma recovered, and once he did he activated 3 tails worth of power that encased him like a jacket. But he never really got the chance to do anything with it since Naruto flew up towards him in midair and shouted 3 before he used both hands to slam down on his head and blast Menma towards the ground. The blow knocked him right out of his tailed mode. Menma hit the ground hard, leaving him in a crater from the impact. Naruto landed in the crater next to Menma's down body, yet the moment he did, chakra chains sprang from the ground and wrapped around his arms tightly. Menma then stood up with a smug look on his face since he had Naruto right where he wanted him. So you still have enough energy to summon these and use them, said Naruto as he stood there. I'm surprised you have that much still. Oh, laugh while you still can, said Menma as he chuckled maniacally, seeing that his mind had slightly shattered from all that had recently happened. Because once my chains drain you of all of your energy, I will make that beating I gave you when we were 7 seem tame in comparison. Oh, that's just cute, said Naruto with a laugh, but I'm a fair man. So let's make a trade, you and me. You want my energy? Take all you want, but in return, I'll take your arms. Naruto then grabbed a hold of the chains that were still wrapped around him and pulled hard. Menma was pulled forward where Naruto grabbed a hold of his arms and pulled them hard. They were ripped out from the shoulder, and blood began to gush out of wounds as he cried out in pain. Naruto dropped the arms to the ground and then stomped them into mush. Menma used what chakra he could to burn his wounds from the inside so as to stop the flow of blood. He then began to back slowly away in fear, and his eyes reflected that. So I'll ask you again, brother, said Naruto with a sinister smile on his face, have you ever felt true fear? Menma pissed himself in fear as he jumped out of the crater and began to run for his life. He ran past his team that was still imprisoned in the field and past the wall through a hole he made when he used his Rasengan. Naruto just laughed since Menma was running towards the water, which was nowhere near anybody's place of residence, so this was not a problem. All I needed to hear, said Naruto as he held up his hand towards Menma, who was still running for his life. 1. Omega Cannon! Purple energy blasted out of his hand in a laser form with a round tip. The attack flew through the air and hit Menma in the back. The attack vaporized Menma as he screamed in utter pain. Soon he was gone, and in his death there was a massive roar as what appeared to be a massive fox made of energy appeared for a brief second before it exploded for some reason that Naruto didn't really care about. The others that had come with Menma could only look on in horror as they saw Menma die in such a way that none of them could ever expect. Their eyes were wide open in shock and their mouths were open. Dear Kami, I needed that, said Naruto as he laughed out loud. That's what I call the best kind of therapy. Naruto stopped laughing after he said that and looked at the group with a look of seriousness on his face. This made them all flinch since they feared the worst right now. Hinata had finally come to at this point, so she was fully aware of what was happening at the moment. Why do you look so scared? Said Naruto as he smiled at them. None of you have done anything to piss me off other than come here and try to kidnap me. But I am in a better mood now. So while I am in such a mood, I'm gonna say this as kindly as I possibly can. Get the fuck off our property. They all quickly, yet nervously, nodded their heads since they would do as demanded since they knew they had no shot to fight Naruto alone, and then there were the other three to contend with. Plus the fact that they assumed that the other three were stronger, seeing that they were older and more powerful looking. Have a safe trip back, said Naruto with a grin and a two-fingered wave as he winked at Hinata. And the offer still stands, Hinata. So feel free to return when you are ready to train. She simply nodded with a deep blush on her face as his three brothers deactivated the force field. As soon as it was down, they all ran out of there like their lives depended on it, and to be honest, that wasn't so far from the truth. And as they left, Naruto turned around to head back into the house to get a spare shirt, but it was then that he saw the full extent of the damage done. And to his dismay, his room had been on the half that had been blown to smithereens. Dear Kami, even in death Menma could somehow still manage to piss him off. The end.